When we think about nursing moms going back to work, the first image that comes to mind is the office setting and women in business suits. You never hear of moms in positions where break times to breast pump or nurse, if you're lucky, can be a challenge. Today we are discussing break time for nursing moms in our Back to Work series with extraordinary jobs. We're the Boob Group.
I use a breast pump.
I hand express milk for my baby.
I exclusively breastfeed.
I use a nipple shield.
I breastfed after a C-section.
I use a milk bank.
I breastfeed in public whenever I feel like it.
I pump at work.
I breastfeed with a cover.
I breastfeed twins.
I give my baby bottles.
I made my own supplemental nursing system.
I supplement with formula.
I talk to my baby while I breastfeed.
I'm breastfeeding as a survivor of sexual abuse.
When I have extra milk, I share it with other moms.
We are equal.
We are
the Boob Group.
Welcome to the Boob Group. We're here to support all moms wanting to provide breast milk to their babies. I'm your host, Priya Namar, and I'm also the founder of the Moms Pump Here Nursery Locator app, which helps moms all over the world find great places to pump and breastfeed their babies. If you haven't yet, we encourage you to download the new Mommy Media Network app, which gives you easy access to all our episodes. You can also subscribe to our podcast through iTunes, so all our latest episodes download directly to your phone. And if you're on iTunes, please leave us a review so other moms can learn about us. Let's meet the mamas joining our conversation today. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your family.
Hi, everybody. My name is Marsha, and I'm a mom for the second time around after a 20-and-a-half-year break. So it's a very large gap. What I knew for this time around after, being a mom for the second time was that I definitely wanted to breastfeed and do whatever it takes to provide that, nutrition for my son Major. So that's what I've been doing.
Hi, my name is Lori German, and I am a mom of two daughters, 12 and 14. I'm also a firefighter, and I've been a firefighter for 20 years, and I was the first firefighter in our department to actually give birth to a baby while they were on the line. So both of my daughters have a very special place in their hearts, and we had to deal with some pretty special challenges when it came to a nursing mom in the fire station.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sunny. I'm producing today's show, and I have 4 kids. But as far as jobs are concerned and breastfeeding my kids, because I breastfed all of them, and I pumped and I supplemented and all that good stuff. And I don't think podcast host and producer is that extraordinary.
It is. You're not in an office.
Well, it's true. I'm not in an office. And actually, I was able to, in a lot of the episodes, my babies were actually nursing, because that's life and that's what I needed to do. But as far as it being a big challenge, I haven't had to deal with that. Real excited, though, to hear everyone's stories, because I know a lot of moms going back to work are struggling with this.
And I'm your host, Priya. So I have 3 kids. My oldest is 14, my middle is 12, and my youngest son, Liam, is 8. And I breastfed, breast pumped, and supplemented for all 3 of them. Liam, I breastfed him for 3 years. And I guess you could say I didn't have extraordinary jobs either. I've done the 9 to 5, and I'm also an entrepreneur, so it's been a little bit of both, of being both on my own flexible schedule and having to adhere to, my supervisor, whatever my supervisor wanted. I am so looking forward to this conversation. I think it's going to be a wonderful discussion, especially since we have 2 moms on here that have extraordinary jobs.
All right. So before we dive into our episode today and talk about these jobs and how moms are going back to work, I have a segment that actually is very much work related. So we have a segment called Mama Hacks, and it's where you, our listeners, submit, whether it's breastfeeding or pumping, your favorite hacks that help you accomplish it and do it easier, right? And more efficiently. And so I'm actually going to read 2 today. Usually I just do 1, but 1 was kind of short, so I'm combining them. So this first hack comes from one of our listeners, Danny. And she makes a really good point about pumps and the type of pumps to use. So she says, a low quality pump can make your supply go down. If you're going to use it every day, invest in a hospital rental or a really good brand or model. She says, I started with a cheap pump and it took me a really long time to get my supply back up. So, I have experienced this a little bit, actually it wasn't even a cheap pump. The suction, it just really wasn't working for me. And I had a dip in supply as well. So yeah, pumps are really important. You need to feel comfortable with them. And, you got to have good suction and stuff. Anyone else experience anything like that?
My daughter has, my first daughter has Down syndrome, and she also had a heart defect when she was born, which made nursing a challenge. And I actually, when she was less than 6 weeks old, I was told that I was going to have to supplement her nursing because she wasn't thriving. So I actually was pumping and was having to supplement that with formula as well in order to get a huge calorie dose for her. She would nurse probably about half as much as a typical kid. So it was a pretty big struggle for me. In addition, I had to go back to work in 12 weeks. As I had mentioned before, that I was the first female that actually had a baby. So they expected me to be back in 12 weeks, post C-section, still breastfeeding. So I actually had to invest in a rental pump as well because the small battery operated models just didn't work.
Yeah, I had a lot of frustration with that too. Well, let's move on to the second one. I want to get Julie's in here. Julie emailed us as well with a mama hack, and I thought this was a good one related to work as well. She says, set up a pumping space when you get to work so you don't have to set it all up when it's time to pump. At first, when she wrote this, I was thinking, does that mean like a designated area? Like this is obviously for people who have more like a desk job type of thing. I'm thinking of like a little pumping area that's like always set up for that. But I think she means when you first get to work, set it up. You know what I mean? And then like just let it be until you need it as opposed to getting it all out. I think you can only do this if you have like a designated office and area for this, right?
So that sounds like a smart tip, but it's not. It was never my first thought when I had an office and I had to pump way back when. It was never my thought, well, when I get here, I have to make sure I set it up. It was just like, it's in my bag. I'll pull it out.
I'll get to it when I get to it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Maybe she was thinking about the time that it would take. I mean, I guess you're spending the time regardless.
I definitely like the whole setup idea. I pump on my way to work, and then I have an hour drive to work. So I usually, empty at least one boob en route to work, and then once I get there, I'll do the other one. I have like a little fridge. I have extra spare parts in my classroom. And my principal was just really great about allowing me to have that space. All I have to do is lock my door and cover like the little piece of glass with a piece of chart paper, and I'm pumping away pretty much naked in my classroom. So from the waist up, of course, and that's how I get it done. But I find because it's a 40-minute period when I'm usually off, in that 40 minutes, I don't want to waste any time. So I have everything just set up and ready to go.
Yeah, that's smart. I think that's what Julie was referring to, too, is like get it set up in the beginning and then, you can be in and out kind of thing, when you take your break. So, well, hopefully those tips were helpful for you guys. If you have a mama hack that you want to share with us, again, it doesn't have to be pumping related. It can be related to breastfeeding as well. But it goes along really well with our Back to Work series that we're doing right now. So if you have any of those tips, you can email us or you can post something on our Facebook page. We could grab it from there.
Today we're continuing our series Back to Work by talking about break times for nursing moms. Many of the moms who listen to the Boob Group are nursing moms who have to go back to work or are working out of their home and have to maneuver break times to express milk with their employer. So both of you have unique situations, and I can't imagine how you maneuver work in your professions. But first, let's talk about what you guys do. Lori, you're a firefighter, and Marcia, you're a teacher. Tell us more about your professions.
Well, I'm a firefighter. I've been with the fire department for 20 years, and actually, I was just promoted at the beginning of the year battalion chief. And so I've created a lot of firsts in our department. I was the first female firefighter that ever had a baby, and I was the actual individual that created the light duty policy for firefighters and the maternity leave policy for firefighters.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah. When I started, we didn't really have any kind of anything in place. There was only 2 females, me being one of them, that was working for the department when I got hired. And so when I decided that I wanted to have babies, I went to them and they kind of looked at me like, I had 10 heads. And they didn't really know how to handle it. And they kind of, guys being guys, said some pretty silly things. So I took it upon myself. I created the policy. I created a light duty policy. I created a family medical leave policy for maternity leave for the female firefighters. And then within a couple of years, I actually put it to the test. And it was definitely a very interesting ride, being around all those guys and being pregnant.
I can imagine. And what about you, Marcia?
Well, with me at work, I can honestly say I have a good situation because of the fact that my principal was also a nursing mom, and she's all about liquid gold. And in my school, there's not too many classrooms that aren't occupied when teachers are off. I guess I should explain how it works. There are 40 periods in a teaching week. It's 8 periods a day times the 5 days. But we only teach for 25 of them. And then 5 of them are our lunch periods, bringing us to 30. And then there's another 10 periods where we're like prepping and grading papers and in meetings and stuff like that. So on the periods when most teachers are off, their rooms are occupied by other teachers. She set it up so that my room was available when I'm off. So all I have to do is lock my door and cover the little glass partition, and then boobs come out. So pretty much I pump at work about 3-4 times a day, sitting right at my desk. If only the kids knew what was going on in there. Yeah, that's it. So I'm able to do that. And it's not easy, definitely not easy, but I get it done. That's how he eats.
So, Lori, I can't imagine, you can't just whip out your boobs like Marcia and sit at your desk and pump. What is the culture like in your workplace when it comes to nursing moms? Now, you talked about creating the new policies, but what was it like when you had your first child?
Well, when I came back to work, like I said, Emily was only 12 weeks old, and she was 4 weeks post open heart surgery also. And the other challenge is that I work a typical 24-hour shift. So I start at 7:30 in the morning and I leave the next morning at 7:30.
Well, you haven't even gone to sleep yet. So Lori just finished her shift this morning before the podcast.
Yeah. So, but yeah, there was definitely a lot of challenges. I came back to work with a brand new baby that was having issues nursing. She had surgery. And I come back to a very physical, and I also had a cesarean section too. So I had to work really hard to get back into shape so that I could come back to work and be able to lift patients and carry my gear. And so coming back to work was definitely a struggle. So when it came time for pumping, I was lucky because I have a bedroom there at work, and it's a little bed but it's only separated by a curtain. And so I would go in there several times a day, and I would sit on my bed and I would pump. And none of the guys minded, but they could come back there and they could actually hear the pump running, and you would hear them, they would come in, right? And they are all making noise and laughing and coming in, and then they stop, they go, wait, oh God, she's pumping, let's get out. And they would leave, like they were like really creeped out, and stuff. And then I would come out and I'd have my little bottle, and I would put the lid on, and I'd walk over to the fridge and I'd put it in the fridge, and I'd look at them, and they would all I'd smile at them and walk out, and they would really kind of look at me like, oh God, she just put breast milk in the refrigerator.
Oh my gosh.
So the privacy that you had, did all the firefighters have that same privacy, or was it just you?
Oh no, all the firefighters were afforded that same privacy as well. So that really wasn't an issue with them trying to make a special place for me. In addition, the station that I was at was also part of the administration office. And they had absolutely no problems forfeiting an office for, the 10, 15, 20 minutes that it took. I expressed milk in the conference room. I expressed milk in the file room, in the fire chief's office. So, if you ended up in a pinch where you couldn't actually go back there and do it back there, then I would just really kind of commandeer any place that I could other than the bathroom.
And what about you, Marcia? What was the culture like?
When I had first gotten back to work, came back to work this year, my immediate supervisor is a man. And I said to him, because I didn't know where my classroom was going to be at that point, and I said to him, Sal, where am I going to pump? He was like, is the bathroom okay? And I was like, no, it's not okay. I said,
No.
Would you eat in the bathroom or cook in the bathroom? So I was like, absolutely not. He's like, okay. I don't know. I was just asking. So, yeah, so I had told him that wasn't an option. He said he didn't know. It's fine. And then from there, he came to me later on that same day and was like, we've made arrangements for you to be able to do it in your room. And I'm able to have like a mini little fridge in there, so I store like the pump parts in there between sessions, since I don't have access to a sink right then. So I just store them, I'll wipe them and store them in the fridge, and then I'm able to just get my little 20-30 minute sessions on at least 4 times a day at work, just really quick between classes.
So how has the perception of moms in your industry affected you? So I know for teachers it might be a little different because it's mostly women who are teachers, right? So how has the perception of moms affected you within your school and your industry?
Well, I know a lot of the teachers are like, wow, I can't believe, you're always pumping or still pumping, because a couple of us went out towards the end of the school year and they said they stopped when they came back. And I just explained this is something I didn't get a chance to do with my first son because I was so young, just not informed about all the benefits and everything. It was something I really value, and just the way I am with everything that goes in my mouth. So it's really hard. But I have a lot of support, I must say, at work. Same deal when the custodians come around to clean and they hear the womp, womp, womp. They're like, okay, we'll come back. So it's kind of like that. Everyone kind of works with me.
Lori, you too. So how has the perception of moms in your industry affected you?
Well, when I started with the fire department in 1996, and women in the fire service were less than 1%. And there wasn't many women out there. There wasn't many moms out there. And like I said, when I started, the perception was that we were there to do a job just like one of the guys, and they expected us to be one of the guys. And when the topic of having babies and, God forbid, even nursing or pumping came into play, it was met with a lot of wide eyes. It wasn't that there was outright defiance or anybody saying that we weren't going to cooperate. It just seemed like they just like deer in the headlights. They just looked at us like, oh no.
Are we really going to deal with this?
Right. It was almost like I likened when I had to go in and tell my battalion chief that I was pregnant. It almost was like going in and telling him that I'd started my period too. He was like, I don't want to hear it. I'm like, it's a baby. I'm having a baby. He's like, we can't talk about that. We're not going to talk about that right now.
He really said that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
He's like, I don't want to talk about this right now. So he left for a little bit, when we went on and did our business, and then it sort of sunk in, the other thing is that, like I said, when I was there, there was only one other female firefighter there, and she had left within a couple years. So I was the only girl for probably better than 9 years. I was the only girl. So of course they look at me as if I'm their sister. So now here I come and I'm telling them I'm pregnant, and they're like, oh boy, it was sort of like telling your big brother that you're pregnant, But, in terms of the perception, it's changed a lot. We have about 7% women in our department, which is much higher than the national standards. And they're all young ladies and they're all having babies. We've got one that's pregnant right now. We've got several that have babies that are less than a year old. And they're all nursing moms, and you come into the station and you see them carrying their bags, and they're carrying their little Medela bags, and they go in and they put them down into their dormitory or their cubicle, and as a supervisor, I've had some of the female firefighters call me up and say, they'll call me on the phone or send me a text and say, hey, listen, we've been running calls all morning long. We've been out of the station for the last 7 hours. I have to pump. How can you help me with that? And so what I'll do is, I'll monitor the radio, I'll monitor the calls, and I'll give them 20 minutes to, try to be able to make time for that, because I know what it's like to not pump. and I know how it feels to not pump, and I know that you ruin your clothes, you ruin your shirt, and I can't have my girls out there doing that.
Have you ever been in a situation where you're leaking all over the place and you're on a job, or like you've been called, like there's an emergency?
Yes. And at that point I put on my bunker coat. It'll be 90 degrees outside and I wear my bunker coat because the shirts that we wear are like sweatshirt gray.
I've tried it on. I remember. Oh wait, no, not those shirts. I tried on your gear.
Yeah, no, not well. That's what I put on. But our shirts are sweatshirt gray, and even with the nursing pads, if it's been several hours and now you're an hour late for pumping, those pads aren't going to cover for anything. That's you might as well not even bother. So you're there and you have to work. You look down and your shirt just looks like. Your shirt is just soaking wet, and I would just go and put my bunker coat on, zip it up, and do what I have to do. And then, of course, when I'm done, I have to wash my bunker coat too, and the other thing that we are learning now also is that our gear holds a lot of carcinogens in it because of all of the fires that we go into. And even though we were supposed to wash them after every fire, it doesn't take out all the carcinogens. So then once I put my coat on, I would have to go back and take a shower first to wash off all of the stuff that might have attached to me because of my gear, and then I could pump.
Oh, wow. So you have to go the extra mile just to make sure you're doing everything safely and correctly. Okay, so talking about breaks, I wanted to read the provisions to you that the federal government has laid out for nursing moms. And then when we come back, I want your opinion. So, okay. The president laid out provisions in the Affordable Care Act. It's Section 4207 of the law, and it amends the Fair Labor Standards to require an employer to provide reasonable break time for an employee to express breast milk for her nursing child for 1 year after the child's birth, each time such employee has needed to express milk. The employer is not required to compensate an employee receiving reasonable break time for any work time spent for that purpose. And the employer must also provide a space other than a bathroom for the employee to express their breast milk. So if these requirements impose undue hardship, an employer that employs fewer than 50 employees is not subject to these requirements. And the federal requirements shall not preempt a state law that provides greater protections to employees. So really, it just gives you a general overview. Okay, so I want you guys to hold your thought on what I just read. I know it was a mouthful, but when we come back, I want to hear about what you think of these provisions and what you recommend to other moms. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Today we're talking about break time for nursing moms. So before our commercial break, I read the provision that allows reasonable break times for nursing moms from the federal level. Let's hear from the moms today. So what did you guys think of the provisions when I read it?
I think it's I think it's a noble thing. I think that it makes it important for employers to realize that the importance of moms nursing their children needs to be accepted in the workplace. If I try to, however, apply that to my situation, my statement to that is breaks what breaks. I mean, I've been on fire scenes where we've been on there for 4, 5, 6, 7 hours. A couple weeks ago, I was on a propane gas leak that it started at 2:00 in the afternoon, and it ran until 7:30 the next morning.
Oh my God! So how do you get a break like that?
I didn't.
Wow.
I left for 30 minutes to go to the bathroom. They actually had to bring food out to the scene for us to eat, and I basically was, I was awake for like 27 or 29 hours straight. So in a situation like that, there would be no time to express. Being a female and being a female supervisor, I'm able to make accommodations for those that I know that are nursing or pumping. I can tell somebody, hey, listen, go to the station or come here, relieve this person so she could go back to the station and do what she needs to do, and then come back, and do just a person to a person exchange. But otherwise, I say, in most normal situations, I say that's great. But in our situation, I don't know how they would be able to afford us break time.
Wow. What about you, Marcia?
I was just thinking when Lori was talking about going all those hours without pumping, I can't even imagine, only because of the pain you actually feel when you're engorged and the difficulties that can lead to with clogged ducts and mastitis. It can get pretty crazy if you're not able to at least, hand express really quick or something just to relieve some of the pressure on the milk ducts.
Yeah, I was lucky. I never had that problem, but yeah, I can imagine.
Because there are times when I'm teaching like 3 or 4 periods in a row, and I feel like little daggers are literally in my bra. It has turned into like a torture device, and I'm just like, I can't even concentrate. I'm like, I'm just like, okay, I really need to just go like squeeze some of this out. So I'm just trying to think of 5-6 hours. It'd be crazy.
Marcia, what age do you teach? What grade do you teach?
I'm middle school, 7th and 8th grade math, and I teach children with special needs and students with disabilities.
Yeah, so I was like, I mean, of course, Lori would have this issue as well, but you're dealing with people that, young kids, I consider those young kids that would think that, anything that has to do with femininity is funny to them. And you know what I mean? So I can imagine you having to go through periods of the day and you like you said, you start to feel the little tingling sensation. And in my mind, not only is that uncomfortable, but I think, oh my gosh, if I leak through, I will never hear the end of it. It will be around the school, posted on every locker. Do you know what I mean? So there's so much pressure for both of you ladies.
Well, I think Marcia and I are actually kindred souls because while she has middle schoolers, I have all men, and it's sort of the same thing. I always worry oh my gosh, if I start leaking and these guys see it, I'm never going to hear the end of it. It'll be all over the fire station in just a few minutes.
No, I have a trick. I'll drink from a water bottle and let some kind of drip down and oh my gosh, look what happened.
That is awesome. Oh, that's funny. That's a good one. I like that, Marcia.
It's happened. Or when you subconsciously reach up and touch your boobs because of the pressure and stuff. And then you're like, oh, am I touching myself? And so you kind of got to play it off and start picking off lint.
Right. I think we've all been in that position where, we're so used to touching ourselves at home. It's like, oh, wait, I'm out in public now. I don't think I'm copping a feel with myself.
It's actually funny because, the guys at work, they'll notice that. And then they'll say to me, do you have to touch those right now in public? I'm like, oh, sorry, I forgot. I'm in mixed company. I didn't mean to embarrass anybody.
Well, we view them as, something to feed our babies. You know what I mean? Other people that aren't used to this are viewing it, more sexual simply because that's what our society trains us to think. So I get it. But I've been in that position before too. It's funny.
Yeah.
This is actually a question for Marcia. So Marcia, the Affordable Care Act, it does have some stipulations in there regarding part-time employees, specifically substitute teachers, not being compensated because they're part-time. I don't know. Have you ever heard of anything like this in your school? Have any nursing moms that are teachers in your school have to deal with this? Do they get compensated?
Because it's just a set day. We don't get paid hourly. We're getting paid for the day. And we're only the teachers that I know that pump or nurse, pump at work, I should say. They're doing it on periods when they're normally off. So the issue with me is I find now I have more work to do at home. So the stuff I used to be able to get done at work, like grading and things, now I'm bringing that home because I'm pumping. And when I pump and I'm not focused on my son, I don't have as much output. And I kind of need a hand to massage. So I can't get as much done on the periods I'm supposed to be. So that's the only issue with that. But in terms of pay wise, no, nobody would be getting docked or not compensated because we get paid for the day that we're there.
So what do you both recommend for moms going back to work, considering your unique perspectives and your professions? Do you have any tips you can provide the moms listening?
Yes. Definitely. To have spare pump parts at work or maybe in your car, because you never know what you might forget. It's overwhelming going back to work and all the things you have to do and think of. And so your mind is not quite there. My mind still isn't there. I don't know when I'll get it back. But I know having extra parts in case you forget something, definitely an extra nursing bra. I've had to make nursing bras out of like my bra to have the hands-free mechanism. So definitely that part, and just being patient and kind to yourself. Definitely. It's a lot of pressure being somebody's food and having to work, but it can get done. You just got to be really patient and stay the course.
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of that. In our situation, like I said, we're there for a 24-hour shift, and we basically live there. So having those extra change of clothes, having the breast pump with the extra parts, all of that is kind of old hat for us. We do that regardless of whether we're pumping or not. I do think that, well, and actually in our position as firefighters, we actually have to have a return to duty clearance from the doctor. So before we can actually come back to work, we actually have to have a doctor's note that says that we're able to perform the duties as prescribed by a firefighter. We don't have any fitness for duty tests or examinations, physical fitness tests. I know that there's a lot of departments out there that actually make women that are returning to the workforce do a physical fitness test to make sure that they can continue to do the job. But being that we're only off, most of the women are only off for 12 weeks, then it becomes a non-point. But actually having that conversation with your employer is also a big deal. And in our particular situation, we're a small department. So I think that there's been so many women that have already paved the way for the being pregnant, the light duty, the maternity leave, and coming back and still pumping, and sort of making that known amongst their coworkers. I think that they've paved the way for that. And then in our situation, we're very family oriented, and we do look at each other as family. So I don't really think that there would be any of us that would have anything negative to say about a fellow coworker pumping or expressing their milk and taking that extra 20, 30 minutes of time while everybody else is out working and they're inside and they're doing what they need to do to take care of their baby.
So are the 12 weeks paid, like from your job, the leave? Because as educators, we don't get any paid time off. In terms of maternity leave, we don't get even an hour off. They figure with our schedules, just plan your pregnancy or just lose the days. So that's interesting. I've seen teachers at my school come back in 2 weeks. You know, you do what you got to do. So, you know, if you do take more time, it's like time coming out of your bank or out of your paycheck. There's no paid leave for teachers at all. So that's hard for some people. They come back really soon.
Yeah, I remember that lady that I think she was the CEO of Yahoo, and she had a baby and she came back to work in 2 days or something like that. And
Marissa Meyer.
Yeah, we've talked about her. She had twins, and I'm just like, yeah. Well, when you've got a nanny and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, she claimed a lot of those new rules that she came up with were from the Google culture, because she came from Google.
Oh.
So it's interesting that she thought that was okay, and that if that really happened at Google, considering how liberal that company is, you know?
Yeah, I needed my full 12 weeks. Like I said, I had a C-section, and I had a C-section with both of my daughters, and I needed the 12 weeks for Emily. And in hindsight, I would have actually liked to have taken longer, but I went back to work 4 weeks after she was post open heart surgery. But with my second daughter, Sarah, I went back in 12 weeks also, and I needed that 12 weeks in order to build up my abdominal muscles and just feel like feel like I was strong enough to actually do the job. I think that the message that's important to get out is that it's nice that the government wants to assist nursing moms and make these accommodations, or make employers make accommodations for us. But in the end, I think that nursing moms and moms everywhere just do what we have to do. Unfortunately, it's not perfect, and it won't ever be perfect, but we just have to do what we have to do. We have to make accommodations. If it's in the car driving to work, like what Marcia does, or if it's going in and finding some dark secret place other than a bathroom to go in and express milk, you know, we just got to do what we got to do. You know, it's the bigger picture is we're doing this for our kids and not just for ourselves.
All right. So thank you so much to everyone for being part of today's show and for sharing their experience. If you're a member of the Boob group, then be sure to check out the bonus content for this episode where we'll discuss awkward mommy moments at work.
All right, so before we wrap up our show today, we do have a question from one of our listeners, and this comes from Chelsea. Chelsea sent us this via email, and she says, my baby is 38 days old, and she was in the NICU for a week of her life, born at 41.5 weeks, but she had some breathing problems. I wasn't able to breastfeed right away because of it, and she was bottle fed before I could be released. We were in different hospitals at the time. I started pumping as soon as I could. My milk didn't come in right away, and even when it did, it was low, and it's still low. My question is, at 38 days old, will she take the breast or should I still bottle feed her? Is it too late for her to take the breast? And will my milk supply increase?
Hi, Chelsea. My name's Helen Anderson. I'm a registered nurse and a certified lactation educator, and I'm also one of the experts here at New Mommy Media. First, I want to thank you for your voicemail and congratulate you on your new baby. Well, it sounds like your breastfeeding got off to a kind of a bumpy start, but you did everything right. You did what you could. You want to start pumping right away and give your body that signal that, hey, I'm going to breastfeed, start making milk. That's wonderful. And as you want to transition your baby from the bottle to the breast, you want to put your baby to the breast at the beginning of each feeding session. If your baby starts to suckle, the baby starts to move her mouth a little, that's wonderful. She might lose a little bit of interest. At that point, you want to use breast compression to kind of hand express some milk into her mouth. And then she'll get the idea that, oh yeah, this is where food comes from. Yes, I still have the bottle, but this is another feeding option. And once your baby has kind of gotten fussy at the breast, maybe they don't understand that they can eat or get food from the breast, then you can go ahead and transition to the bottle. But the breast should be introduced at the beginning of each feeding. Now, your milk supply. We know that a pump doesn't empty the breast as well as a baby does. So if you're exclusively pumping, you are at risk for a low milk supply. What I want you to do is go online and Google hands-on pumping. There's a great video from Stanford University, and what you're going to see is women that use their pumps and a hands-free bra to enable them to press on their breast with their hands to get even more milk from their breasts. And what we have is a more thoroughly emptied breast. And then, since we know lactation works on supply and demand, that their supply will then increase once their breast is emptied more thoroughly and more frequently. Be sure you're getting enough rest. Be sure you're drinking enough fluids. And if you're doing all of these things, your milk supply should stay stable, if not increase. So keep up the great work, and congratulations, Mom.
That wraps up our show for today. Thanks for listening to the Boob Group. Don't forget to check out our sister show, Preggie Pals for expecting parents, Newbies for newly postpartum moms, Parent Savers for moms and dads with toddlers, and Twin Talks for parents of multiples. This is the Boob Group, where moms know breast.
This has been a New Mommy Media production. The information and material contained in this episode are presented for educational purposes only. Statements and opinions expressed in this episode are not necessarily those of New Mommy Media and should not be considered facts. While such information and materials are believed to be accurate, it is not intended to replace or substitute for professional medical advice or care, and should not be used for diagnosing or treating healthcare problem or disease or prescribing any medication. If you have questions or concerns regarding your physical or mental health or the health of your baby, please seek assistance from a qualified healthcare provider.
How would you like to have your own show on the New Mommy Media Network? We're expanding our lineup and looking for great content. If you're a business or organization interested in learning more about our co-branded podcasts, visit our website at newmommymedia.com.